Hey everybody, welcome back to this final video in the Getting Started tutorial mini-series for the composition framework. In the last video, I'm going to show you real quick how to set up some basic data bindings and how to make some on-screen buttons that are really important for mobile devices. So to start, data bindings are basically a way to automatically display variables that you've created in your user interfaces. So we're going to do that by showing you the amount of keys that you have just in the UI up here in the top left. So let's go to our UI scene, and we're going to add a new TextMesh Pro object. We'll put up there in the top left. Make sure it's positioned correctly and size it a little better. Just the same properties we had as before. Oh, and we don't want that over there like that. So variable bindings are a component that we can add to these classes to alter their properties. So to alter the text that we want to show in this TextMesh Pro object, we're going to add what we call a number binding, because we want to bind a variable, a number variable specifically, to that text. So if you remember from the very beginning, we made a global variable called key count, and we can just set that right here with this variable property and just say global.key count. And now that's all you have to do. Automatically set up. We can go back, run our scene, and you can just see that now that number appears right there at the top. And we can change it down here in the watch window. It's 5, it's 7, it's everything. Really cool. That easy. So if we go back to our UI, I'll show you a couple of other things you can do with this specific binding. We don't really just want to show just a number. So you can add some formatting stuff to this. If we want to say keys, colon. This format field is just like a C# string format field. So whatever you have in between these brackets will be what the variable field inserts it into. So this will just show keys 0 at the beginning, etc. You can do some other specified stuff. So like we'll make this a number and we'll just say, hey, it's rounded. So you can now preview this. It'll say 5. Stuff like that. So there's a lot of different options you can play around with. If you want to add commas, if you want to make decimal points and stuff like that. You can even do times with seconds and stuff. Pretty cool. So these bindings are really easy to make if you end up wanting to have your own. There's a bunch of other things like for colors and images and stuff like that. And I'll just show you one more. We're gonna do an enable binding so that this doesn't show up until we actually start the game. So it's not just there up at the top while we have our other stuff on. So I added an enable binding variable, and see it kind of looks similar. The object that we want to enable is this TextMesh Pro script right there. So we'll drag that down, and we're going to make a new variable. So we'll just call this global.gameStarted. Basically, when this variable is true, when this condition is true, the object will be enabled, and vice versa. It will be disabled when it is not true. So we can go back to our start graph, which is already open right here. And then right after the start message, we're going to make an expression node. If you remember, that's how we incremented our keys. So we're just going to make a new variable. We're going to say global.gameStarted equals true. So we'll call this gameStarted. And we'll make the connection to that. So it starts right after this message is dismissed. And if we go back to our player, and we have our variable link, which defines those global variables, we'll add one more variable, game started, and we want it to be a Boolean value, and it starts out as false. So now, if we go back to our level 1 scene, we play, we can notice that the number is no longer displayed up there, but as soon as we press enter, there it is. So really pretty simple stuff, and all that is just components and variables. You don't really have to write any scripting whatsoever, which is really cool. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add these on-screen buttons. So let's go back to our UI scene. I already have some pre-made sprites here. I'll just add those to our project real quick. And we'll add each one of these in. We need them to be UI images. So we'll add a UI image. We'll go right And we can duplicate that. We'll just change these for each time. We want 4 of them. We'll change the sprite for each one. Left, down. I'm really putting these in the wrong place. This will be left. This one will be down. This one will be up. And we can position these better. I'm not going to take the time to do this perfect. I just want to show you the gist of how it works. Okay, so we want these to control how the player moves. So you remember from our player script, we just had horizontal and vertical as those 2 axes that controlled the player. So to each of these objects, we can add a component called axis input. And the axis name corresponds to the axis that you want it to trigger when you press this button. So we'll call this is up, so we want this to be vertical. And the value that we tell it to set when you click this button or press this button on a mobile device is 1. And then the exact opposite for the bottom one. So this is -1, also vertical. And then for left, the same thing, axis input, except the axis is horizontal, -1 to go left, and axis input, horizontal. Hopefully I spelled all those right and didn't make any errors. So when we start this up, we need to start our regular scene here. This will load our UI and our buttons will be here. And now when we press enter, we can now click these buttons and our player will move. This isn't the greatest setup, but just wanted to show you how to get this working. So very cool. We got a key, and now we can finish. And I didn't even use any keys there, just by clicking. So really cool that we have those that unify kind of the input system from Unity. So if you want to make a game that's cross-platform, you can just add these components to your UI objects, and it'll work the same with keyboard or mouse and clicking. And you can do the same for buttons too. We also have a button input, which just does the same thing. So this will just make it so it triggers a button name when you click on one of these objects. So pretty cool stuff. And that about wraps up everything I want to show you guys. And we've only scratched the surface of what you can do with this framework. You can do so many other things, animation, sounds. You can make entire game systems. We've included a ton of example projects in the package that you can check out. They all have walkthrough videos, and there's going to be some other guides that we slowly roll out and teach you guys more things. And as always, please ask us questions in Discord. Give us feedback. We'd love to hear if you guys want new features and stuff. We're going to be constantly working on this. And I really appreciate you guys watching. I hope you guys enjoy using this, and I will see you guys later.